granniopteryx. She knows the truth, she's linking every link.
Okay, hello. This is, as you may know, he's been here before, Potkin Azameh, and he's an Iranian, or was an Iranian. I suppose he's as English as anybody else now, but he has connections and a great love for the country of his birth, which no one could blame him for. And there are problems there. And I wanted him to talk about that. So, Potkin, tell me something.
Thank you, Demi. Thanks for giving me another opportunity to talk to you. This started after you read my latest article that was published on the Middle East Forum, and then came back to me and said that you'd like me to talk to your audience about it. And basically, it's the topic of the hostile states manipulating the political debate in England, in Britain. And we've heard about this mostly about the from the Russian side. Most average people in Britain, they've heard how the Russians and the Chinese have got their cyber army bots, as they're called, where they just make up all these like fake accounts, and they try to influence the political debates in this country. But perhaps not many people are as familiar as with the Iranian states, the regime in Iran doing this as well. That gets less publicity in the mainstream media. This goes back to quite a few years. The first time I wrote about this was in 2019. It got published in a few American websites, again, not so mainstream, but it was a whole host of fake accounts that were on the social media, on Twitter, that was called at the time before it was changed to X, on Facebook.
Can I interrupt a moment?
Sure.
There is a new thing on Twix in which you are nailed down to the area where you are. It's identifiable, isn't it? Have you heard of that?
No, actually, no.
On X now, you can see where the account is based.
Oh, yeah, that's what I was going to talk about. But
yeah, okay, go on.
You mentioned Twix. I don't know, what is Twix?
That's Twitter and X.
Oh, right. I'm actually going to talk about that. So, 2019, when I wrote that article, we managed to identify some of these accounts, and some of them were shut down by Facebook and by Twitter. But back in those days, it would take a lot of research. You'd really sort of like have to look into some suspicious accounts and follow them and see their behavioural things and that. And it was quite a cumbersome, painstaking process to identify such accounts. But then, and then there was also another case where during the 12-day attack by Israel, one of the places that they targeted was the Iranian cyber base headquarter. And suddenly, a lot of these fake accounts that were trying to manipulate the political debate in Britain just went silent because the actual building was bombed. So, some of them were identified in that way as well. That all of a sudden they're really prolific, very active, and then suddenly, just after the attack, they go completely silent. They're not coming up with anything. And then what happened was, like recently, with the latest update of the X platform, it gave the opportunity for people to, if you go to someone's profile and then you click on the date joined, then you will see the information that says what country they're based in and how they are connecting to X. So what happened was there was all these, like, say, for example, fake accounts that were promoting Scottish independence, for the Scotland to break away from England.
You mean from Iran?
Yes, yeah. So if you looked at these accounts, if you read my article, I've identified some of them, and I'm glad that Tom Tugendhat, the former security minister, also mentioned that on his X account as well. So these accounts, if you just sort of like follow them, you would think these are typical Scottish people with Scottish names like, Jessica and Bruce and this and that, with sort of like, they support a Scottish football team. They're like, doing all the sort of things that Scottish people do and that, and they also promote the Scottish independence. And yet suddenly, when this feature came about and you looked into their location, they were based in Iran.
So what's going on is that a lot of people who are all hot for Scottish independence and feel like they have a lot of support behind them, and so are persisting in their feelings that there has to be a breakup of the, of Great Britain, they are actually being manipulated by some mullah in Iran.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure there are some genuine people that feel like, Scottish independence is the way, but it's interesting to find out that the regime in Iran is actually favours that as well, and is trying to manipulate the public opinion by making up all these various fake accounts that promote Scottish independence. But when you look into them, you now see that they were based in Iran.
Yeah.
But then there was another thing that came about as a result of this feature, and that's more to do with the fake accounts that are set up by the regime in Iran to confuse the expat opposition, to divide the opposition, to sort of like sow the seeds of division amongst the opposition. And they were identified by this way. So in Iran, to connect an ordinary person, if they want to, they can't connect to X, they can't connect to Instagram, and that these are all banned. So for them to connect to these social platforms, they need a VPN.
Okay.
So if it was like a genuine account of some ordinary Iranian trying to say connect to X, their country would be based in Iran. But the way they would be connecting to the X would be through a third country through a VPN. The ones that are working for the regime, who've got what was called white internet, that means that they've got the privilege of connecting to these social media platforms directly because they're working with the regime. They were connecting without a VPN. So they were identified as well. So they could be posing as, say, some monarchist groups, some left-wing groups, whatever. But their job was to send fake information, fake news, discredit the real dissidents, the real opposition figures, and to sow the seeds of division. And basically, it's this latest feature on the X platform has just made it a lot easier to identify them. And the last I looked, I think something like 400 have been identified in this way, and I'm sure there's a lot more. But it just goes to show that, we have these hostile states that are trying to manipulate the public opinion and the public debate in this country. Somehow they're allowed to have all these various outlets in the UK, Islamic centres and all this sort of thing, exploiting the loopholes in our democracy in terms of religious tolerance and freedom and everything, so they can sort of like extend their network of influence in this country quite freely. And yet the British government can't even reopen the British Council in Iran, for example. They can't, the BBC can't even have a sort of like an office in Iran, whereas for somehow the Iranian regime is allowed to have all these press TV and Iranian state TV radio offices in the UK. And it just seems to be like a one-way favour in terms of the regime in Iran being able to spread its tentacles and network in the UK.
And what's going to happen when those guys working for the regime twig to this identifying thing and start using VPNs themselves? It's going to go back, isn't it?
Well, yeah, I mean, a lot of them have been identified. So either they've just deactivated their accounts, or they've tried to change the information. So, they're now sort of like, instead of saying like they're in Iran, They say they're in West Asia or something.
Yeah.
But it's good that so many of them got identified in one go, and we found out about the extent of their activities. I mean, it's, as you know, it's a cat and mouse game. I'm sure they're going to rebrand themselves and sort of like try to somehow come back again. But the important thing is to understand and to identify that there are hostile states that are trying to infiltrate our political process in various ways, be it just manipulating public debates, being sort of like injecting money into institutions, infiltrating our institutions, and we need to be prepared for that. I mean, this is something that the National Security Act that was passed in July 2023 was supposed to do. I mean, the idea, if I can quickly talk about that.
Go ahead.
I don't know if you've got time, but basically the security services were saying, look, we've got the powers to arrest someone if they are involved or if we think they're involved in some sort of terrorist activity.
Just a minute, I want to break in on this because, you know, it's been going round that there are 40,000 Muslims on the watch list for MI5 or whatever. I read recently that it's 80,000 now. I don't know how true that is. Have you heard that?
I don't know. I haven't heard the 80,000. The 40,000 figure I've read in the papers, but that's just to do with directly being involved in terrorist activities.
Yeah.
What the security services were saying was that we don't have any power to arrest people who peddling the influence
Okay.
on behalf of a hostile state.
Right. Yeah.
For that reason, under the previous administration, the National Security Act got the royal assent in July 2023. Part of that the new National Security Act was what was called Foreign Influence Registration Scheme. So by law, someone who is peddling the influence on behalf of a hostile state should register in this scheme and declare that they're doing so. They're getting paid for it and they're doing it. And if they don't, then there'll be a jail sentence. Yeah. The thing is,
but they're abroad. You can't get at them.
No, but some of them are here.
Oh,
are working in the in various outlets that say, for example, the Islamic Republic has set up in this country.
Okay.
But the thing is, it's now 2 years down the line, and it just hasn't been implemented.
No.
I mean, if you ask the relevant people, okay, so where is this register? I mean, it's only just recently. The Home Office has released the link to where this register is, and last time I looked, there's only about like 2 or 3 people and bodies that have registered, and one was to do with Kosovo, the other one was to do with Albania. No one from Iran or anything like that. So, and you have, say, for example, the Quds Day rally. This is something which is directly organised by the regime in Iran.
Yeah. Just a minute. I want to explain to people who don't know what the Quds Day rally is. It's that Quds is the name for Jerusalem, and it's a direct anti-Israel fest, which celebrating Iranian supremacy and to keep in the public mind that their focus is on destroying the Jewish state. And there was one, when was the last one here? It was quite well attended, wasn't it?
It was, it was several thousand people.
Yeah.
It was round about March. It's at the end of each Ramadan. So because that's on a lunar calendar, it's on different times of the year.
Yeah.
But, on the Al-Quds Day rally, you get people attending this rally openly carrying pictures of Iran's supreme leader and the flag of the Islamic Republic. And so, according to the Foreign Influence Registration Scheme, all these people, because they're trying to sell the political Islam of a hostile state, the ideology of a hostile state, and to gain influence in this country, they should be arrested. But I mean, I was speaking to the police officers who was policing that protest. None of them even knew about foreign influence registration scheme. I mean, they didn't know who Dan Jarvis is. They didn't know who Tom Tugendhat was. They didn't know what National Security Act was. They had no idea about it. I mean, I remember about a year after the National Security Act got the royal assent, I asked someone in one of the committee rooms in the Parliament, I said, well, you know, this legislation has been passed. Why isn't it being implemented? And the answer I was given at the time was because they said, like, just because something becomes a new legislation, it can't be implemented straight away because you need a headquarter for it, you need a budget for it, you need to train staff for it, etc. And that takes time. And that was fair enough, you know. But it's now more than 2 years now, and still nothing. I mean, when that National Security Act first got passed, Tom Tugendhat was the Minister for National Security. He released a video on his YouTube and on his social media platform account saying that this is a game changer and from now on everything's going to be different. Dan Jarvis, a few days before the Al Quds Day rally, reminded people about this National Security Act, this foreign influence registration scheme and everything. They keep going on about it on their social media platforms, but it just doesn't get implemented. It's just nothing is getting done. And we have this situation where we just seem to be completely unguarded with these hostile states peddling their influence, extending their tentacles and networks into this country, and we're saying, yeah, you know, come and take it. So
why?
That was the short and curly of that article, and you know.
But how? Well,
I should know that.
So there are two things here. The first is that this government couldn't run a piss-up in a brewery. We all know that, don't they? But the other thing is, this is a Home Office thing. It's an MI5 thing. Why aren't they doing anything about it? Any ideas?
I don't know, and I think this is, I mean, if we had a proper mainstream media with proper journalists, this should be one of the questions that they should be asking these officials. What is the point of passing legislations when you don't implement them?
Yeah.
You know, we waste all this money, all these, like, you know, debates in the Parliament and all these, like, procedures and everything. They're just as good as just being on paper if they never get implemented. You know, you're talking about foreign influence registration.
But do you think...
And in fact, the 3 states that were specifically identified in the new National Security Act and the Foreign Influence Registration scheme were Russia, China, and Iran.
Yeah. Well, is there anything being... Okay, so let me ask this. Do you know how much is being done about Russia and China? Are they being suppressed or diverted in some way, and the Iranians not?
I think there is more focus on Russia. China, as you know, as with one of the previous cases, they seem to be a bit scared to take them on because the economic power that China has and everything. And Iran is getting away with it because of, like, you know, fears of, I think, Islamophobia, you know, this thing that they've made up, and its ability to exploit, you know, the British values in terms of, like, you know, freedom to practice religion, etc. So for example, they open up these, like, Islamic centres, which are not really. But
they did shut down the Confucius centres, didn't they?
Yes. So,
and they're not shutting down the Islamic centres.
No, and I think that's because they're sort of like the. I mean, the only thing that's happened so far is the main Islamic centre in Maidavale. Finally, they appointed someone called Emma Moody, the Charity Commission's appointed someone there as their interim director to supervise that they only do charitable work and they don't get involved in political causes. But the rest of them are just getting away with it. A lot of them are under investigation, and more than anything, I mean, they go on their investigation and there's no update, there's no decisions made. And if you ask any questions, it's become an excuse for them to say, well, because they're under investigation, we can't comment on it.
Yeah.
So you can't even go any further. But it is a bizarre situation. It's sort of like, we're allowing hostile states to grow internally in this country, and no one's got the backbone to stand up to it. I remember I accidentally met the previous shadow security minister. It was a female MP for Halifax at the Parliament. I mean, it was a completely different event, and then I was introduced to her, and she told me that she sits at some of the, because of her position, she sits at some of these joint security. At the time, I mean, she was Labour, and that was like in the previous administration. But she told me that she sits at some of these joint security meetings and everything. She'd never heard about the all these Iranian outlets that were set up in Britain. And when she exchanged her email with me, and I was sending her all these things, she was ever so surprised.
But we haven't heard anything from her since she's.
She actually had a baby and didn't stand again for the election, so she's not even involved anymore. So that's the end of that. But nothing from her successors or anything either.
This is so. What one is, perhaps not entirely fairly. I'm thinking that there's an element of intention in this. I mean, the fact that so many people don't know about it, you'd expect them to be briefed on this pretty strongly and consistently. And the police don't know about it, and the shadow security minister didn't know about it. It sounds like intentional.
I mean, like, more than anything else, it's the police that really disappoint me. I mean, you would think, all these protests that have been going on for the last 2 years since October 7th, you would think that the people, the police officers that are sent to police these protests, they'd be at least briefed. And some of the cases that we've seen are just embarrassing. I mean, there was one video that I saw where the police officer thought that he was trying to tell someone off because of holding a placard saying Hezbollah are terrorists, because he thought that Nasrallah was a religious leader of Lebanon. There was another guy.
That was Nayak, wasn't it? Holding up.
Niak was with Hamas's terrorists.
Oh, I see. Right, that's right. Right.
I think everyone knows about this. But this was a Jewish guy at one of the protests.
Yeah.
And the police officers had no idea what Hezbollah was or what Nasrallah. When I was arrested myself, the detective who charged me, he didn't know what Hezbollah was either. I said, "How can you not know? You're a university graduate." He said, "I've heard of it, but I don't quite know what it is." There was a legal observer who was again charged and questioned, and the reason they were trying to charge him was because he was trying to say Hezbollah is a terrorist organisation. And the duty solicitor, I mean, the video came out, the duty solicitor was saying that, well, forgive me, but it's a prescribed terrorist group by the UK government. And then you had someone who was like, questioned for wearing the Star of David. So, I mean, the police have just been completely embarrassing. They are so ignorant, the ones that go to police these protests. And you would think that, just this sort of like a 20-minute briefing, just to, if there's an Albrook Day rally, just to explain to them what Hezbollah is, and Hezbollah is a prescribed terrorist group, or if it's a pro-Hamas or protest, to explain to them, what Hamas is, what does the Hamas flag looks like, that Hamas is a prescribed terrorist group, and you shouldn't arrest someone for holding a placard that says Hamas is terrorist. They really, really are ignorant, and I blame the top police management, because they really are not briefed. I mean, I've asked them at these protests. I said, "Do you get briefed before coming to these protests?" And they said no. It's out of their world. The things that are being the process that are taking place. They have no idea what is going on.
So what they're doing, what you have identified, is that the police are spending too much time being briefed on DEI and not enough time being briefed on LAW.
Yeah, it seems so. And what happened to the police vetting? I mean, I just don't think they're vetted. I mean, they're not. I don't think they're vetted in terms of their literacy, in terms of their intelligence, nor their physical ability. I mean, some of them just make me laugh. They're in no shape to catch any criminals. When I was a kid, there was you respected the police. The police had an aura about them. You didn't mess about with them because they had a physical presence as well as like some.
Well, they knew basic law as well at the time.
Yes, exactly. They knew the basic law, but these ones are just. I think they're just like you say. It seems like DEI is just the top priority, and there is no other vetting in any other areas.
Once there was a guy came to mend the boiler in our house, and he told me that he had actually wanted to be a policeman, and I said, well, what happened? And he said, well, I passed all the tests. So I said, well, why didn't you become a policeman? He said, I was the wrong colour. And I didn't believe him at the time. I thought he was just being sour grapey. But I am actually mentally, I didn't say I didn't believe him, but I am actually mentally now apologising to him because, I've heard of this happening a few times since then. It's the police. And the government are responsible for the police, so I'm afraid
they keep talking about putting on more police officers. What do they call them? Citizens police. What is it? What's the?
Oh yeah. Part-time coppers.
Yeah.
Specials.
Yeah, and community police officers.
Yeah.
But it's not the numbers.
No.
It's the quality of the police. If you add up 100,000 zeros, it's still going to be zero. You can put another 20,000 police officers on the street, but if they're not physically fit, if they're not clever enough to do the police work, if they don't know the law of the land, I mean, what's the use? What's the good? You're just wasting money. It's not the numbers. They need to do some proper vetting of the police officers.
Well, proper education as well. Do you remember that one about the jihad thing?
When I go on holiday, when I go to different countries and all that, and I see the police in other countries, I mean, it's just so obvious that there's a difference. You don't mess about with, say, the police officer in Poland or in the Czech Republic or the places like that. They are proper police. They look like proper police. But here, I mean, sometimes I think they're like traffic wardens or it's just they just don't have that presence about them.
Well, they just
crime.
They are not armed with the correct information. Do you remember that jihad thing? They were shouting something about jihad at one of those pro-Palestine fests, and somebody said, they're calling for jihad. Why aren't you arresting anyone? And this policeman said, well, jihad can have several meanings. And you could hear the common purpose DEI lecture that he attended, that got stuck in his head a week before. And that's the problem. They're not aware, they're not armed with the right information. They're just indoctrinated at the College of Policing. That is probably the whole problem. But yeah, what are we?
And I think you made a video about this recent thing, but the select committee hearing for the West Midlands Police.
Oh yes.
And on the Mac thing. I mean, I'm sure you picked it up as well. In the intelligence report, for example.
Yeah.
they presented to justify their ban of the Maccabee.
It was just a whole bunch of lies. The whole thing.
Apart from the lying that the Amsterdam police gave us this information and all that. The other one where they cited the Maccabee match against West Ham that never took place.
Oh yeah, they made up a whole football match, didn't they?
Yeah, I mean, West Ham has never played Maccabee, right? So I mean, that must have been the easiest verification that you could do, right? Okay, so I mean, the excuse for the West Midlands Police, Craig Guilford, the chief constable there, was that it was something that was wrongly picked up on social media or something, right? So, I mean, it was so easy first to verify it, and also you should, why didn't they contact the Met Police if such a match did take place and they're putting it in their intelligence reports? I mean, it just makes me laugh to call it intelligence report. It really was not an intelligence report at all. Why not contact the Met Police and say, we've been told about this match, what happened? And then maybe the Met Police could have put you right. So many people are getting arrested because sometimes they repost something or they see something on social media without verifying it and posting it. And yet no one's asking, well, why isn't the West Midlands Police verifying something that they're putting in an intelligence report?
Think before you post.
Think before you post and put something in the so-called intelligence report, which is going to contribute towards a decision that's got such international repercussions.
Yeah. Now, look, Potkin, we have 5 minutes left. So I want you to go back to the Iranian thing. And just let's try and track where the fault lies. So it lies with the police because they are supposed to be keeping an eye on the local ground, and they're not doing that. And then it's the Home Office, and then it's MI5.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a combination of all the above because, as I said, I mean, before they were saying that legally we can only arrest people if they're involved with terrorist activities. If it's just peddling influence or if it's promoting the hostile state's ideology, we don't have any legal means.
But we do. We've got this foreign influence registration
scheme. Yeah, we have the new National Security Act, and they're not being implemented. The police don't know about it. The Home Office doesn't seem to be too active in terms of getting on with it and implementing it. The media is just not holding them into account. No one's telling us whether they've sort of trained the right people now. Have they got a headquarter for it now? Do they have a budget for this now? Where is this registration? I mean, where do you go and check to see, who's registered and who's not registered?
So who would we ask?
Yeah, and, no one's asking these questions. When it comes to something of such importance to national security.
So that's the Home Secretary's bag, isn't it?
Well, the Home Secretary is definitely part of this puzzle. That is not pulling his strings yet.
Yeah, the buck stops with her.
I think so, yeah.
So it's Shabana Mahmood who really needs to be answering those questions.
And also, to some extent, Dan Jarvis. I mean, I've got a lot of respect for Dan Jarvis, actually. He's one of the few people in the current administration that I've really got a lot of time for. And, Dan Jarvis himself has gone on several times on his social media accounts about, the importance of this new National Security Act and how this, can benefits Britain and all that. But I mean, surely someone's got to ask Dan Jarvis. It's no good you just posting things on your social media if the security services and the police officers who're supposed to be implementing it don't even know about it and they've got no idea what it is.
Okay. Well, if there's any pressure to be put, it's Dan Jarvis and Shabana Mahmood who should be doing something. So I suppose if anyone wants to write to their MP and say, why aren't they doing something about this? then that would be passed on to them, wouldn't it?
Yeah, in fact, I've done the same with my local MP, he was telling me that he was going to write to the Home Office, get an answer, and that was about a year ago, and I still haven't heard anything. My local MP is Dan Tomlinson, who's a Labour MP. He came across, first time I met him, he came across as a sympathetic person, he came across as a nice person, the email dates back to more than a year and nothing.
He's probably hit the same brick wall you did, though. A lot of these MPs have very little power now.
Possibly, yeah. The independent MPs in West Midlands who can tell the West Midlands Police, which matches to ban the fans of the visiting team.
Maybe this
be the only ones who are powerful enough.
Maybe this should be passed on to Reform. They can make more of a fuss about it.
Yes, I think you're right there.
And they probably will, given half a chance.
Yes. I think next time I'll meet Richard Tice or one of the Reform people, it's something that I should mention to them. They should bring it up. Like I say, this is national security. This is a very important matter.
You know what? I'm going to write that down. I shall, when I do my when I put this out, I'll send an email. I'll copy Tice and Farage into this. And maybe one of their secretaries will read it. OK, well, we have 1 minute, less than a minute, to hug each other goodbye. This has been a really frightening and informative conversation. Thank you very much for coming on to this, Potkin.
Thanks for giving me the time. Thanks.
OK, bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye. You can help my channel by subscribing and clicking the notification bell. That's quite important. And by sharing if you're so inclined. Links to my other channels and to donation methods are in the description. But the best way you can help is simply by clicking like and notify. Thank you.